everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm Bree,
And I'm Alex.
and this is the Damn Strong Podcast. How's it going, Alex? How was your weekend?
It's been okay. Let me rewind from that. It's been an
Okay.
insane week. So I went viral on TikTok, which I
Yes.
know you are very accustomed to going viral.
No, but
But
yours is insane.
mine was insane.
I've
Yeah.
never. Okay, you say that, but like I've never had the amount of growth that you had in like literally 24 hours. It's
Yeah.
insane.
16 to 82,000 followers in like 4 or 5
Crazy.
days. 3.4 million views on a video, on one video. A lot of messages, a lot of comments. Like, oh man, we could make an entire episode on the misinformation in my comments. Like, people are just like
Yeah.
kind of like battling a little bit, and it's like sometimes I come in there and there's too many comments to be able to
That's
respond to
why it
every
was
one.
viral because the more
Yeah,
controversial, and it's sad that that topic is controversial, but like
it's
the
not even
more,
controversial. It's just like here's why it got so
and
many
that's where
comments.
people are commenting about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
99% of the comments were like very positive. I guess I should give a recap. It was just a video that was like, how much protein should I be having per day? And it was
Yeah.
like, if you have 30 plus pounds to lose, use your goal weight rather than current body weight. That
Right.
is not like some scientific, like PubMed article type thing. It's
Yeah.
just a good rule of thumb. If you're
Yeah.
300 pounds, trying to get in like 300 pounds or 300 grams of protein is very unrealistic. And
It's
what Bree and
ridiculous.
I do with our clients and with the people that follow us is we try to make this more accessible for you. And
Right.
so like that's just a way to make it more realistic and accessible. It's not that 300 grams of protein would be a bad thing. But anyways, so a lot of comments, 99% of them were like really, really nice and helpful. And like, wait, how much protein should I have? 1% attacked me. Like, they were
Let's
mean
agree.
too. They were mean. One of them I screenshotted because it hurt me so bad. It cut so deep.
Aw.
It cut so deep that I might like print it out and put it on the wall of my gym, like
Yeah.
on that like wooden wall. It
Yeah.
said, "You are way too average looking to be giving advice."
That's mean.
It's like, bro, I can deadlift 500 pounds.
Yeah, true. Very
Like,
true.
I don't know if I'm average. If 500-pound deadlift is average, we got some strong motherfucking humans
Yeah.
walking the earth.
Yeah.
So like, but I didn't respond. I just gave a bunch of crying, laughing emojis. But realistically, I was like, damn, really,
Yeah.
damn. Like to the.
Well, get used to it because as you get bigger,
I
the
know.
comments come more and more. Every time I give some type of
Yeah.
advice, it's about how I look
Yep.
should qualify me, or
Yeah.
and typically, well, it's more so advice of like an exercise or whatever. It's like I would never take advice from her. She didn't look like she works out
Right.
like
Yeah.
all the time. So just
You
get
want
ready
to
for
you
it.
want to trigger our body dysmorphia? Tell us about how the way we look changes the advice we give. Like Bree
Right.
and I've spent years learning this stuff, and now you're
Yeah.
disqualifying us because like we're 9 months into a bulk. Like, come
Yeah.
on now, come on.
Right.
So that was pretty
Yeah.
crazy. Just business growth. TikTok doesn't convert the same way Instagram does. So if I went from like 7,000 or 8,000 followers to like 80,000 followers on Instagram, that'd be totally different.
Yeah.
But still
But
pretty cool.
still,
Then this weekend, we went to the Taylor Swift concert, had floor seats, which was
insane.
crazy. Maddie looked amazing. She was so
She did.
cute. She got a lot of compliments on her boots and like, on my Instagram.
She looked incredible.
Yeah, she looked great. And then, so it was like, a very poppin' day in Detroit. And then we start heading back. We find the Uber. That was like a whole thing. This guy was a miraculous driver.
Wait, did you go from Detroit back home?
No, we stayed overnight. Yeah, so we
Okay.
stayed the night in Detroit. So we drove into Detroit, parked like 3 miles away at a hotel,
Right.
which they didn't even have enough parking for us. They were selling parking for $10 a night, which is another thing. But they like, we paid $418 for this hotel room, and you're not going to save a parking spot for us? Come on now.
Right.
So we had to park across the street down like this crazy, like
Oh my
sketchy alley in
gosh.
Detroit. It's a
Yeah.
whole thing. It's fine. So we get back after the hotel. We're exhausted. It's like midnight 30. And we go up to this, we get in the elevator, we go up to the 6th floor. We're walking down the hallway, and Maddie like touches me on my arm. I'm looking down at my phone, like responding to Instagram comments and stuff.
Yeah.
And Maddie like touched me on my arm, and she looks like scared. And our door is like at the end of the hallway on the right. And I'm like looking over at her. I'm like, did you see something? What's going on? and she like can't speak. Like she's not saying anything. Normally she would just like say something, but she like didn't
Yeah.
speak. And I was like, what did you fucking see? And she didn't say anything. And so I was like, whatever. So at this point, I'm like ready to fight somebody, thinking
Yeah.
there's like somebody who's like about to attack us, like waiting around a
Right.
corner. And so I go and we start walking down the hall. And you know how like every hotel like set of doors kind of has like it's pushed in a little bit,
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
So we're at like 614 or something like that, or 602 right now, and we're walking down, and at like 610 or 612, the hotel, the room number, there's a man standing there completely naked
What?
outside of his hotel room, holding his giblets in his hands and like trying to cover his face with his shoulder, like he's like embarrassed or something.
What?
He's wearing this like neon green jockstrap type looking thing. Like he was there for a party. He was there. I don't know what was on the other side of that room, but he was locked out with no phone.
Oh no.
Unless he was holding it along with his, his nuts and stuff. And so I'm just like, oh my God. So we get into our hotel room and like, it looked nice from the pictures, but then we get in there and I knew like when we first got there, when we first checked in, I was like, damn it, this is not what I thought it was, this hotel room.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we get in and like, I'm pretty frustrated at this point, like I'm pretty like,
what
pretty
did I
annoyed.
just see in my hallway? What are we getting ourselves into?
Exactly. And so then I like go to lock the door, and you know how they have like that latch, that you can put over like that like metal bolt on the door?
Yeah.
The latch is not fully screwed in. And so like I can send you a video after this. I could pull it out with, if I held my hand on it and sneezed, it would have pulled out. No strength at all. Just like a little jerk. So I'm like, oh great. You need like a key card to unlock the door and all that, but it's just like,
but
so
you just hear about all the stories of like employees having a key card. And so it's just like safety wise. Yeah.
So then I put a door and like barricaded the door with like a chair, but yeah, so that was pretty crazy. Overall, really fun night. Taylor Swift is an awesome performer. Maddie, it was probably like one of the best days of her entire life. And she cried. So like I was just happy for her, cool event though. Yeah.
Did you enjoy it? Did you enjoy being there? Like, do you know any Taylor Swift songs besides like,
I know Taylor Swift songs, but I don't know like all the words, like all the lyrics or anything like that.
Like the chorus main.
Yeah.
lines.
Like Shake It Off, and
yeah.
stuff like that.
Love Story maybe.
Yeah, sure. Love Story.
Yeah.
No, so it was like a good time. Like for me, I'm not really the person. I was telling Maddie, there were these two women in front of us and they were just dancing and free flowing and singing and having a good time. I was like, I'm so happy for them. Yeah. And that's not me. I wish it was to a degree, that I could just be like singing and dancing. I'm sure that about me is like, I stood like this, just like this, just hands over, just kind of sitting there and kind of bobbing a little bit. And then like Maddie was trying to explain like some of the lore to me. Like there's a snake on the screen and I'm like,
yeah,
what does that mean? And she's like, that's her Reputation album. We're in a new era. And I'm like,
you're like,
okay,
what's an era?
Cool. Nice. Like I had a general idea, but anyways, I was really happy for her. The naked man in the hallway was like really crazy. Yeah. Anyway, how was your weekend?
It was good. It was not very busy, which was nice. I feel like for the next, literally the next like 5 weekends, I have something going on. So, and then we're moving and all of that. So this weekend was really chill. I enjoyed every moment of that before the kind of the chaos, not really chaos, just busyness of everything arrives. So
counting down the days until you're moving.
I know we literally have 2 more podcasts that we're filming where I'm in this room, and then
oh my gosh,
I know.
Then you'll be in your own office.
Yeah, that will be nice because then I don't have to coordinate with Sage.
Sure,
because people don't know Sage and I work in the same exact room with desks and everything, so we have to coordinate a lot his calls with podcasts and all that, and it'll be nice just to be in my own office.
Awesome.
Yep. All right, we want to hop into this episode.
Let's do it.
Okay, so today we're talking about yo-yo dieting versus bulking and dieting, or bulk. I think it would be better to say bulking and cutting. Those
yo-yo dieting versus bulk cut cycles.
There we go. I like you put that.
Yeah. I got this question a few days ago, maybe a week or so ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, from a follower named Kate. And I thought it was such a good question. I gave her an answer, but then I said, I thought this was such a good question that I want to make a post about this. And then I told Brie about it, and we were like, let's just make a podcast episode about this, because there's a lot of stuff we could talk about, and it'd probably be too much for just an Instagram post. So
right. But yeah, her question was ultimately, correct me if I'm wrong, like, what's the difference between these two? Like, essentially they look the same. So how are they not the same thing?
Yeah, you always hear people saying like yo-yo dieting is so bad, but like I feel like the why is missing. Like, why is it so bad? And also just, what's the difference between, if you're doing bulking and cutting cycles, isn't that basically the same thing as you're doing a yo-yo?
Up and down the same way. Yeah.
And that's a really, really good, that's a good question. And so we're going to tackle that today.
Yeah. So I first kind of just Googled, like, what's the definition of yo-yo dieting? There's not probably like one definition, but as I was scrolling through and looking, it was just kind of, the repeated loss and gain of weight, like very just simple and bland. I was like, there's actually a lot that I feel like it's missing, and that's what we're going to dive into more. And then, if you looked up bulking and cutting, those each have their own definition. Of bulking would be, eating in a calorie surplus to put on muscle, and cutting would be eating in a calorie deficit to lose body fat. And so you could probably apply that to yo-yo dieting. Your, repeated loss and gain, and that repeated loss and gain is coming from being in a deficit and being in a caloric surplus. So then it's like, okay, well then what's the difference behind those two?
Yeah. And I like that you had written down that, like, this was your note, that it comes from losing control. And I think that's the most important thing. Is a lot of times Brie and I and other, solid coaches will recommend going about fat loss, especially if it's your first time, going about it pretty conservatively. Don't feel like you have to go guns blazing, try to lose as much weight as fast as possible, because what we're worried about is that you are going to be so restrictive that you'll rebound. You'll feel like, okay, at the end of this, air quote, whenever the end is, that you're going to be like, okay, shackles are off, handcuffs are off. Now I get to go crazy. Now it's the end of this phase. Now I can go nuts and just eat whatever I want. And that's kind of what we see with restrictive diets too, like keto, potentially intermittent fasting. I don't know what other ones.
Whole30, those things too. Yeah. Things that limit, I guess, honestly, any fun, somewhat processed foods.
Exactly. And so that is kind of how I see yo-yo dieting personally, is like putting these severe restrictions on yourself, dropping weight very, very, very quickly, and then the restrictions are off and you go nuts. You go back to your like old style or old way of eating. And my personal, what I would worry about is the faster you lose weight. Let me back up a little bit. When we lose weight, we're reducing the amount of energy that our body holds, right? So our body can hold energy pretty much in both adipose tissue or body fat as well as lean mass. If we try to lose weight too fast, there's an upper limit on how much we can lose from body fat in a given day, probably. And so if we try to go faster than that upper limit, then we're at risk of losing muscle at the same time.
Yeah.
If we lose muscle, that's not great. It'll come back quickly. So that's
a net negative almost.
It's a net negative. Yeah. I almost would say like strong net negative. Now, don't be too alarmed, because it will come back. So like you regain muscle at a very, very fast rate. But if somebody wasn't lifting weights, let's say somebody isn't lifting weights, they go with an aggressive cut, they drop, let's say 20 pounds, 10 from that being body fat, 10 from that being lean mass. Let's say they go from 170 to 150 in this time. And then they're like, oh, shackles are off. I hit it. I hit 150. This was my goal weight. Now I'm just going to eat back to the way I was. Well, the way you were eating got you up to this 170 or, whatever weight you're at. And so if then you go back up in weight up to 170, you probably didn't gain much lean mass, or at least you gained a disproportionate amount of lean mass versus body fat. So you didn't go 10-10 the way you lost it. Maybe you gained 2 or 3 pounds of muscle and then 17, 18 pounds of body fat. So you're hurting your body composition over time by reducing your lean mass, increasing your adipose tissue, but staying at roughly the same weight.
Yeah.
This is very
you're actually now in a worse spot than you were before.
You're a higher body fat percentage, which it's not
even
like
though you're the same weight.
Yep.
You're now a higher body fat percentage because you have less muscle.
Yeah. And so Did I miss anything there? I felt like I was really going at that for a while.
No, no, I was wanting you to keep going. I just want to pop that in there that you're in a worse
Hmm.
spot now and point that out. But I want you to keep going if you have more on
Yeah, I
that because I
do.
loved how you were saying all of that stuff.
So then my I guess my advice to you would be, if you find yourself in a yo-yo dieting pattern, would be number one, I'd say lift weights. If we are lifting weights, we're taking our sets close to failure. You don't have to be super, super structured with this, but if you have no idea where to start, Bree and I both have group training programs with a
Yeah.
7-day free trial. You can try out either one of ours. Um, she's great at programming. I'm great at programming. Try out either one, seriously,
You could
or both.
honestly join both. Yeah,
Yeah,
with the
join
free
both for a 7-day
trial.
free trial. See what you like.
Yeah, see what you like. Exactly.
Eventually, with our app that's coming out later this
Yeah.
year, we are putting our programming brains together, and
Yes.
like seriously, cannot wait for that. I'm
I
so
know.
excited for
I
that.
know, me too.
But anyway, off the little promo there.
Yeah.
So what I would say is, if you can start lifting weights, then when you lose weight, you are going to be able to retain muscle at a higher rate and potentially even gain muscle while you're losing
Yeah.
weight. This is very, very important.
Yeah.
And then when you go back up in weight, if you do go back and up in weight, you'll be gaining lean mass at a faster rate than you would be if you weren't lifting weights.
Yeah.
When we gain weight, we are still putting a little bit of lean mass on, but that is accelerated by like an insane percentage if we're lifting weights. If we're
Yeah.
just eating and just like going up 100 pounds, not going to gain that much muscle. You gain a bit, but like not that
Yeah.
much. But if you're lifting weights, you go up, a bunch of weight, then great.
Yeah.
So that'd be
Totally.
my number one recommendation is, lift weights. My second recommendation would be slow it down on
Yeah.
both ends. I think the yo-yo dieting
When you
perspective,
say slow it down on both ends, what both ends are you talking about?
both
Just
fat
to
loss
specify.
and like the weight loss and the weight gain
Yeah.
perspective. So
Yeah.
if you want to go these routes of, bulking and cutting cycles, if you're interested in that, um, I would say slow it down in terms of how fast you want to lose weight, and then slow it down, especially slow it down how fast you want to gain weight. We're not gaining more than a pound or two of muscle per month on the high
Right.
end. So if you're gaining much above that, like if you're trying to bulk and you're putting on 5-10 pounds a month, whoa,
Yeah.
you're going way too fast about it. You're putting on way too much more body fat than is necessary by
Yeah.
far. Yeah, I feel like I've gotten a pretty good handle on that right now. I
No.
guess the
Yeah.
other thing I would say is, like, if you've struggled with yo-yo dieting and you don't want to anymore, and you're like not trying to do these bulking cutting cycles,
Yeah.
try to find balance. And
That
like,
was where I was going to go with this 100%.
let
Yeah.
I want you to take the reins here.
Well, it's funny. I never realized this actually would, well, there's no way I could know this ahead of time, but I just got off the call with a new client and she really struggles with the extremes of she's either, eating past her fullness or she's completely starving herself. She's having a hard time finding the in between. I was like, look, honestly, I know you're wanting to lose body fat, but I would love if we started not on the route of fat loss. I would love if we could find that balance for you first.
Yes,
And then
agree.
once we find that balance, then go into fat loss. I was like, and I'm open to experimenting with fat loss first. The great part about your journey is it's your journey and we could go into fat loss first. And if it absolutely sucks because we're really struggling with that, we can go to finding balance. But I was like, my advice would be is that we let's start with, when you are eating something in front of you and you get full, you stop. Or when you are hungry, you eat and you just give yourself a serving. And then if you're hungry, you can always go back and get more. We should first start with finding that balance and then go from there. And something that she said, she's like, well, I also have my wedding that's next year and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, I get that. And like, if we want to make progress, we can. But we have to remember and also understand, like, we're talking about the rest of your life here.
Yeah.
And so it's more important for me to find balance for you for the rest of your life than to just try our best and really dig into fat loss that isn't even that successful in the first place. And just like, spin our wheels without getting traction just because you have this wedding next year. I go, it's totally an important event. I'm not saying it's not important, but my best advice to you is I would like for us to start at a point where we try to get you out of this extreme overeating, extreme undereating, find balance. And once we find that, then we go into fat loss. And if we start that way, we may not make as much progress as you want to by the time your wedding comes around next year. But I was like, I honestly, and I was saying this, in a nice way, like, I don't really care because I'm more so worried about the rest of your life than this one event. We'll still make progress. Like we will. maybe not as much progress as you want to, but who cares, because we're going to make progress for your wedding and then for the rest of your life. And so my biggest advice to anyone that's struggling with yo-yo dieting is maybe just stop with the fat loss goal. Like, for just, and usually people who struggle with yo-yo dieting have been trying to lose the same 10, 20, whatever pounds for the last 10 years. And you just need to take a break for a second and just live in maintenance for a while and actually understand what that feels like. I feel like you had something that you kind of want to pop in there, Alex, and say.
Yeah, I wanted to. I already know the answer, and I know you already know the answer, so I'm setting you up for a home run here.
Okay, I'm nervous now.
No. I know you'll nail it.
Okay.
You're great coaching, first off, by kind of giving her the rundown of like, we can do this, but here's why I would recommend doing this. Ultimately, You're still letting her choose, but you're just giving her the information for what you've experienced as a coach, what you know as a coach, and kind of giving her your insights. So I think that's great coaching. What are you worried about happening for her and for other clients that kind of go that route, or maybe not even clients, but people who go that route of like, oh, I have a wedding next year. I need to lose as much weight as fast as possible right now. What are you worried about?
With her specific situation with trying to do that, it's like, we're going to spin our wheels and not get anywhere. It is I don't know if that's what you were lining this up for, but mine is, you said it on either a previous podcast or sometime when we were talking, but like the worst feeling is being in a deficit. And I'm doing air quotes, being in a deficit and not losing weight, where you're doing all the effort to track your food, to not eat out on the weekends or eat out, but making sure you're tracking, and you're spinning your wheels, but you're not getting any traction. And that's my biggest fear, is like, if people try to go as fast as possible, as much as they can, it's like, one, you're not going to be very adherent, and you're actually probably going to go slower. And so, I told this client, like, yeah, we could hop into a fat loss phase now. If it doesn't work out, then hop out of it. That's totally possible. But it actually might be faster if we didn't even try that. We just actually find balance for you, and then we go into fat loss, because if we trial the fat loss phase, we have to trial that. If it doesn't work, then we have to go to maintenance. We actually added time that we won't be able to be in a fat loss phase to your wedding, which isn't a bad thing. Some people need to go through that and go through a fat loss phase and know, okay, this is not what I need to be doing, to actually know it's not what they need to be doing. So there's nothing wrong if that takes longer, but it's potentially could be the longer route. And so is that what you were teeing me up for? Or
yeah, I think you nailed it. People need to learn balance before they learn restriction.
Yeah.
Like if all you've known is this very aggressive, very intense restriction, and you've never found balance in food, you're going about this the whole wrong way.
Yeah.
My biggest concern is like somebody, like you said, is going to feel like they're in a deficit without being in a deficit, which is a horrible, miserable place to be, both trying to coach that person and being that person. It's very frustrating. Right. What I would be very concerned about is just, like I said earlier, the rebound weight. It's like you do all these aggressive tactics, and it's like, did you learn anything? Yeah. Did you learn how to maintain this on your own? Did you learn how to maintain the results that you've worked so hard for? So I think that's some great coaching. Learn how to sustain your body weight before you learn how to lose it, because otherwise you're screwed on the other side of this.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's exceptions to everything we're saying too. There's definitely people who come to me who struggle with, maybe maintaining on the weekends, or not maintaining, but following through with their fat loss protocols on the weekends. And like, for those, it's like, okay, it's all per client and what they're struggling with. It just depends. But I think so many people spend so much time, like, I just have to be more restrictive. If I put a reel out one time, and it was like, I was always the girl where every time I wasn't consistent, I restricted more. And I thought if I was just stricter on myself, I'd be more consistent, which now looking back, that's so backwards. It's like, if you can't be diligent with something really small, how are you going to be diligent with something even more extreme? And so the same thing applies, just like when you're having that yo-yo dieting, it typically comes from that extreme stuff. It's like, okay, well, if you can't hit 10,000 steps a day, just try to hit 2,000 every day. And once you do that every day, up one day that you hit 5,000 per day, and then build upon that. And once you be consistent, then you just work upon from there.
Yeah. It's like if, you're teaching your kid how to do mathematics, and, they're dealing with like addition and subtraction, and you're like, let's get into calculus 2.
Because you suck at addition and subtraction. You're so bad at it. We're going to make it more extreme.
Yeah. Like we need to. Yeah. The shooting the basketball was too hard. We're going to dunk today.
Yeah. That's the same logic that every time you restrict more because you're not being consistent enough, you're applying that same logic.
get better at the basics before you try to sprint. You know,
Yeah.
we're not, if I'm teaching a toddler how to take his first step, I'm not like, why is this kid not sprinting? What an idiot.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we talked
Um,
about through, I think, what yo-yo dieting was, and you said at the very beginning that it comes from really, I think the biggest thing comes from like losing control.
and
And
I
go
wanted
ahead.
to add in too, like the
Yeah.
all or nothing mindset. Like I
Yeah.
feel like yo-yo
That's
dieting
huge.
is the all or nothing mindset exemplified in a dietary pattern. It's
Yes, it
somebody
is.
is like, oh, I'm going to eliminate all of my favorite foods right now, starting January 1st. I will never eat a cookie again. For the
Yeah.
next 3 months, I will not eat a single cookie. I will come out of this going into hot girl summer looking like a god.
Yeah.
That lasts 2 weeks because you
Right.
went way too crazy with it. Like,
Right.
yo, chill out, take a
Right.
step back, just relax for a second, take a deep breath. This is going to take longer than you hope for. Hate to be the bearer
Right.
of bad news, but it is.
Yeah.
What I like to do for this all or nothing mindset is set up, and for my clients is set up a spectrum. And so I say,
Mhm.
maybe they're going out to dinner and they're concerned about it. And they're like, every time I go out to this dinner with this group of people, it's like I always overeat. And I say, okay, you're feeling this all or nothing trap right now. And they're like, yeah, definitely. And it happens with workouts, with nutrition, whatever. And I say, what would be the absolute worst decision, for
Yeah.
this dinner? And they're like, well, I have 2 martinis, a glass of wine, 2 shots. I order, super fatty steak. We get the mac and cheese. We get, a burger,
Yeah.
whatever. I don't know,
Right.
making stuff up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, what would be the very best decision? And they say, I get a salad and water. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, all right. So this is very different.
Right.
Okay, it's very different. And I say, do you think that is at all realistic? If you're going out with friends, if you're going out with business partners, whoever it is, for you to not drink. And for some people, it's yes, but for most people, it's honestly just no. It's probably
Yeah.
not, because their friends are going to be like, oh, why aren't you drinking? Yada yada yada.
Right. Yeah.
That's a whole conversation else.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, let's meet in the middle. What would be like a kind of middle of the road? And they say, well, maybe I get the burger, but I don't get the side of mac and cheese. I get a side salad, and I limit myself to 2 drinks. I'm like, wow, that is a very great compromise. And
Yeah.
then I always take it one step farther. I say, what's one step worse and one step better? So now we have 5 decisions to work off of, 3
Yeah.
which are very realistic, but
Right.
they're on a spectrum. And it's like, if you fell into this all or nothing mental trap, please do this exercise with yourself. Think about the
Yeah.
absolute worst case scenario for your current goals. What's the
Yeah.
best case scenario for your current goals? Find the middle ground, get a little bit of wiggle room, and stick within that. Now you have a plan tonight.
Yeah. Let me ask you, when you ask them that spectrum and you say what's the worst and the least worst, the best case scenario,
Yeah.
do you want them to be realistic, or you just want to hear what they have to say for best?
I want to hear the nuttiest.
Yeah.
I want to hear the absolute nuttiest.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it
Okay.
makes me, it just makes it fun. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, it makes it
Yeah.
fun. And like, I think the middle 3 is where we can get really realistic,
Yeah.
because most people are living within the confines of reality for most times. It's not like they're
Yeah.
going out and having like 15 drinks, having to
Right.
get dragged home, like
Right.
it's usually pretty realistic. And people are way harder on themselves than they need to be.
Yeah.
And they feel like, if I misstep, I will lose all of my progress and I'm moving away from my goals. And
Right.
even just having the consciousness to understand that you do have goals and what you can do to work toward them is such a massive step. Like, it cannot be overstated how
Yeah.
important that just awareness is. Awareness
Right.
is what will help you get closer to your goals more than anything else.
Yeah. When you said awareness, that just reminded me. I had a client that texted me this morning, just some of her logs from the weekend, and she went over 700 calories on Saturday. And my first response to her was like, I am so proud that you tracked when you went over, because a lot of clients don't.
Right.
And she replied back, she goes, I really thought about it, but then I realized I wasn't helping myself by not doing it.
Right.
And I was like, that is nail on the head. Like, you got
High
it.
five.
Because I was like, I'm not even mad that you went over. I would never be mad at you, but I'm not even mad that you went over 800 calories because you saw that. She also was like, wow, this is really eye-opening how quickly alcohol adds up.
Yeah.
And I was like, exactly. And so 1, we had a huge learning moment from it. 2, we could adjust throughout the week if we wanted to. And then I said 2, 3, like she did it anyway. She recognized that her not having that awareness harms her, more than helps her. And so she has that where she tracked it. And now we're just aware like, oh, wow, now I see why I'm overdoing it on the weekends or how I'm overdoing it on the weekends.
Yeah. Being honest with your calorie tracker and your coach is probably the best thing you could do if you're gonna, especially if you're like spending money on it. Like, even if you're not, it's still a really good idea. But especially if you're spending money on like Brie or my coaching, please be honest with us.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, we're gonna be happy about it. We're gonna be so grateful.
Yeah, it's just, and because if we have the real hard facts, then we can actually problem solve.
Absolutely.
And work through it.
Yep.
So
absolutely.
Anything else you want to talk about on just specifically yo-yo dieting?
No, I think we could go on to bulking and fat loss phases next if you want to.
Yeah. So the only thing I wanted to say is I feel like everything we talked about was really just talking about what yo-yo dieting is. It's a sense of like Alex at the beginning, like it's losing control. I even want to say like there's not really there's
no strategy to it.
Strategy. There we go. There's not a strategy, but I was hesitant on saying that because it's like the strategy is never eating a cookie.
Right.
There's not this, it's extreme, it's all or nothing.
No nuance. It's lacking nuance. It's lacking that grayness.
Yes. And then the reason you probably have this losing control is because you're doing this all or nothing. And because you're losing control, you're like, if I just get more strict, it's a very extreme way to be as yo-yo dieting. So if we go into bulking and cutting, I put here in my notes, it's a purposeful phases of building muscle and losing body fat. I think that's very important that it's like, it's purposeful. And I put, there's control and purpose behind each of these phases. And so it's a much more, I think you're going to think of the word I'm looking for. Intentional is the word I'm looking for. Intentional way of gaining weight and losing weight, essentially, if we're breaking that down simply.
Yeah. Yep. Totally agree. Should we get into, briefly, should we touch on like the rates? Now, I know we have podcasts specifically dedicated to, fat loss, bulking.
I think we should let's first plug those. So do you have Spotify pulled up on what episodes? I'll talk a little bit while you pull those up.
Yep. Perfect.
Okay. So we definitely have specific episodes on like bulking 101, I think is literally what the episode is called. I have 4-step process to successfully start a fat loss phase. That's one of my earlier episodes, maybe episode 7. Alex will figure that out here. So
episode 7. Yeah. Great memory.
Okay. Episode 7 is the cut episode or the
Episode 10 then has what directly and indirectly affects fat loss. Mm-hmm. Episode 11 is you might not be ready for a fat loss phase, which I think really ties into what we were talking about earlier with the yo-yo dieting with,
Totally.
Episode 15, make tracking easier and quicker on MyFitnessPal. I think that's a really good one here.
Y'all just scroll at this point.
Yeah. Just scroll. Just go through.
Go down to episode 7 and just start scrolling up.
Yeah.
But if you want to know the basics of these processes, episode 7, it's like the 4-step process is starting a fat loss phase. And then our bulking 101 is episode like 20 something.
22.
Yep. Where we dive in more. But basically in both of these phases, in the cut phase or calorie deficit, the whole purpose and goal is to maintain your muscle and just lose body fat. Yep. And so you're intentionally saying, okay, how do I maintain muscle? I need to eat a sufficient amount of protein. I need to be, strength training. And then going into a bulk is where you are intentionally putting yourself in a optimal position to gain muscle without gaining a unneeded amount of body fat. You're going to gain some body fat because you're eating a surplus, but just enough in a surplus where you're not putting, at some point, the amount of body fat you're putting on to the muscle rate and gain plateaus out, I guess you could say, or dips off, or I don't know if the term I want to use for that
diminishing returns.
Diminishing return. There you go. Thank you. There's diminishing returns. And so it's like, let's find that sweet spot. And so it's just not this extreme thing. You're going into a deficit, eating protein, lifting weights, being at a conservative, I do quotations because that's a relative term, calorie deficit, and then bulking. Again, it's not like you're doing this. We talked about dirty bulk and clean bulks in the bulking episode, but you're not just trying to put on a massive amount of body fat and going this extreme where you're just gaining 20 pounds of body fat in, 4 months or something like that. And so it's less extreme. It's kind of that middle. It's kind of like your example with clients. What's the worst case scenario and the best case scenario? And then we have that middleness to it.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. It's a calculated and a more measured approach to both
Yes.
cycles, and that is ultimately, in my opinion, what differentiates yo-yo dieting versus these bulking cutting cycles
Yeah.
is you are taking a measured approach rather than just like saying F it and hoping for the best kind of thing.
Right. Totally. 100%. And something I did want to add in here is it doesn't mean that you can't quote unquote lose control when you're in a deficit or in a cut or when you're bulking. Like you're going to have those moments where, you're a human, you'll have temptations, you'll, not feel like doing something. I just want to make sure we specify that yo-yo dieting is like the long-term extreme of this. And the bulking and dieting, there are going to be times where you're experiencing emotions where you throw things out the window or you say, I'm going to start again on Monday. But again, there's a strategy in place. And then as you know that you've really grown as a person in advance when you have a mess up and you're like, okay, what can I learn from this? And what can I take going forward? And where did I not prepare or what did I do wrong? And how can I better prepare for the next time?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't I don't know what else we need to cover on this topic. Do you know what else we need to
Yeah,
cover?
no, I feel like the big part of this was the yo-yo dieting of just like, because, you know, more people struggle with the yo-yo dieting than have it all perfectly down where they cut and bulk and do all that stuff. Like,
Most people aren't doing cut bulk cycles, like
yeah, it's honestly,
99%.
yeah, you almost like started this yo-yo dieting of extremes and then getting to bulking and cutting is where is finding that balance.
Yeah.
And then I think even more finding that balance is being able to have the screw ups or the mess ups or the trial and errors and learning from that and once again, I can't think of the word I'm thinking of, but make it better, I guess. Gosh, why can't I think of the word? Refining how you
Refine.
do things, and then being
Hmm.
honest with your efforts, and then you dig into the mindset stuff, and that's just how you really know you've grown from the yo-yo dieting to actually like being strategic and taking the emotions out of things, looking at numbers and applying logic. So,
Yes,
um,
more and more of my clients have been women specifically have been asking me like, "Do you think I should do a bulk?" And that gets me
I love
so
that.
excited because I think for so long women were just told get smaller, 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 smaller,
Yeah,
smaller,
yeah,
for decades. Like it was just
yeah,
get smaller at any cost. And
yeah.
now women are seeing more women like you, for example. Like my followers reference you or my clients reference you and they're like,
Oh,
well, Bree's going
yay.
through the bulk and she's putting on a lot of muscle. And it's like, I know
Yeah.
you went through a bulk. And so what would that mean for me? And it's like, I love that we're able to have these conversations now. And it's like the fact that people are women, especially, I think men, it's just like, that is what, men
Yeah.
do. It's like the man
It's
thing, you get
grow up.
big, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
you grow up
exactly.
knowing you have to eat a lot of food to get big, and so it's just more
Yeah.
normalized for you guys.
Yeah, and so seeing more women say like, "I think I'm more interested in a bulk," it's so cool to see that because it's like that's where we're going to maximize muscle growth.
Yeah.
Just as a quick aside, I probably wouldn't go much above 200 to 300 calorie surplus per
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
Um, Above that, probably not going to be, yeah, like you said, diminishing returns for muscle growth, and you're going to put on body fat at a faster rate. But yeah, I think one thing that I wanted to add in is just like stop looking at your dieting phases, whether that is fat loss
Mm.
or bulking. Stop looking at them as an on-off switch and start looking at them as a dimmer switch. There is so much
I
room
love that.
there. Thank you.
Sorry, love that. Keep going. Keep going. I'll add my 2 cents to that.
It's just like there's so much room for I don't know, just I hate to say grayness, but like it's not black and white. It's not on or
Yeah.
off. Like you are going to be living with the foods that you eat for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
So if you can just kind of go with the flow a little bit, allow your lifestyle, allow the seasons of change, allow your body to go through seasons of change. Maybe it's wedding season. You put on 3 to 5 pounds of body fat. Okay, you had a great time. Like that's
Right.
fine. Maybe you went on vacation. You put on a half pounder, a
Life
pound of
was a
body
little
fat.
brighter. We dimmed it up a little more,
Yeah,
So,
exactly. And then
yeah.
you can always dim it down. You can always dim it up. Like
Yeah.
stop thinking that it's on off.
Yeah.
There's a
No.
lot of room for growth here.
Yeah, why I love that so much is because I think a lot of people have this like, I want to lose 15 pounds. They implement healthy habits. And once they lose the 15 pounds, it turns off. And so
Yeah.
people see this weight loss, muscle building as an on or off switch for usually events or whatever. It's like, no, 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 no. When you decide that you want to lose body fat or change your physique in any way, and you want to maintain that for the rest of your life, it's always on. The light is always going to be on for the rest of your life, but you have control over, like you said, making it brighter, dimming it down, and deciding where that's going to be. So when you decide to ultimately take a step towards your fitness goal, you're always going to be someone that's going to be active. How active? That will change. You're always going to be someone that prioritizes protein, nutrient dense foods, vegetables, fruit. How much, depending on where you are in life, that will dim and go up and down. But you're always going to be someone that is essentially conscientious of thinking in that to a point. And again, it doesn't have to be the point of you're tracking everything. It could be a season of your life is, hey, I just want to make sure that I have a protein with lunch and dinner and one vegetable and one fruit. And that you've dimmed it down a lot, but that is your perfect ambiance. You found where you want to live the rest of your life. It gives you the body that you desire, but then you also have to understand, like, okay, if you're wanting to do X, Y, Z, you might need to dim it up a little bit more, but is that worth it? You know? And so you have to find that balance. So that was just, gosh, the perfect.
I want to say it's a light bulb moment.
Light bulb moment for me, literally, but no longer a light bulb. My light bulb's on a dimmer now. It's no longer an on-off switch. So that was really good. Yeah. Good. I think let's just wrap it up there. That was great.
Let's do it. Yeah. I think I think we covered everything I want to cover.
Good. If you guys enjoyed the episode, please screenshot and share it to your stories. Every little bit, it's for free for you to support us that way. Every little bit of that helps. And if you have any questions from this episode, any takeaways, please shoot us a DM. We love to talk to you guys in the DMs about, I don't know. And again, your takeaways, what you liked. If you have any, good critiques that you want to give us or anything to add in of how we can be better, we're always open to that too. So
yeah, would love for you to screenshot and tag us and say something about the light bulb or the dimmer switch. That way people have to get about 40, 50 minutes into the podcast before they can hear about that.
We'll know that you actually really listen to the podcast.
Yeah.
Like a light bulb on your stories or dimmer or something if they have.
We'll know that you're a true fan.
A gift for that. Yeah, totally. Cool. Well, everyone have a great rest of your week and we'll see you on the next podcast.
Take care, guys.